Okay. Um,
First item of business is approval of the minutes of June 17th.
turn the mic on.
Oh, sorry. First item of business is the approval of the minutes of June 17th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So move.
A second? All right, all in favor of approval of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. All right, that leads us to the next item of business. This is the approval of the administrator's performance appraisal form. You'll recall at our last meeting, we had directed staff to create a sort of revised performance evaluation review form for our administrator. We have, that process is completed.
Move for approval of the form as provided by HR.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. That concludes the Human Resources Committee meeting, and I'll turn it back to you, Chairman Pryor.
Thank you, and this will come before our Finance Committee meeting, our next Finance Committee meeting for tonight. That'll come to us tonight. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so now we'll move into our Finance Committee meeting where all members of council has a vote. We have 6 items on the agenda. The first, well, actually 5, because one was removed. Item number 1 is approval of minutes of January 4th, 2022. What is the pleasure? Is there a second? Second by Mr. Sass. Any discussion, addition or deletion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item 2 is consent agenda. 2A is Saul Agree Road Turn Lane Project. And item B is Adele Street Improvements. What is the pleasure? There's a motion for A and B. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Sass. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 3A is permitting process. There's a presentation, and then we'll come back to 3B for a library construction update.
Good evening. Councilman Schwiers has previously seen the full version of this presentation in May and thought it would be advantageous for the entire council to see how the permitting process works and how the permitting departments have worked together to streamline this process for the citizens of Charleston County. These departments consist of zoning and planning, public works, stormwater, and building inspections. They currently operate under these regulations. In order to improve the processes, we've created a permitting committee. This committee's mission to simplify the permitting process for all the citizens of Charleston County with cross-departmental communications and a unified message. The committee's members are zoning and planning, Nikki Grimble, public works stormwater, Wes Linker and Sonia Cromwell, building services, Diamond Cooper. The permitting department currently uses the Intergov permitting system. This system automates operations and uses GIS to connect critical process to increase productivity. This system also allows for online submittals. Now I will turn it over to Nikki Grimble, who will discuss the specific process improvements and how the permitting process works.
Thank you. So over the past 8 months, we've put in a great deal of effort to improve and expedite the permitting process, which is really centered around coordination and communication across the 3 departments that contribute to this review process. One of the most beneficial improvements has been implementation of a 15-day coordinated review between zoning and stormwater. By reviewing applications simultaneously, the customer can expect to receive comprehensive comments within a specified time frame. Staff is also now in contact with applicants after a 3rd submittal if there are any items that have not been yet been addressed. And each department now has a dedicated intergov administrator, which allows for collective efforts to be made both on the internal side and also by dedicating staff to improving the customer experience both in person and online. This table shows the total number of applications reviewed by the 3 departments from the calendar years 2017 through 2021. And just looking at the totals alone, in 2017, we took in roughly 18,000 applications. And at the end of 2021, we were at 22,652. This represents a 25% increase in permitting activity over the past 4 years, making our ability to serve customers accurately and efficiently is essential. So a new module called Decision Engine has been custom built to better serve our customers. This online tool asks a series of questions to identify what type of application customers need based on their answers. This is then directly linked to our existing online application system called Citizen Self-Service, or CSS. While the county has been able to accept applications online since 2017, Decision Engine is an enhancement to the customer experience by providing alternative methods to find information instead of having to visit us in person or calling the office. It is ready to go live and will be accessible on the Charleston County website within the next month. So this is what Decision...
I didn't hear that.
it will be ready to go live and on the website within a month. Yeah. So this is what the customer will see when they access Decision Engine. They are able to apply for a permit, pay an invoice, submit plans, subdivide property, or access other informational tabs. If the customer selects apply for a permit, the options on the second row include zoning permits, public works permits, building permits, or they can just learn about the process. So here's an example of what a customer would see if they selected the Subdivide Property tab. The series of questions shown on the right would determine what application type the customer would need to apply for based on their responses. So in this example, the customer indicated that they wanted to subdivide their property. So the portion shown in the top right corner takes them directly to that specific application that they need to submit in our CSS portal. And then there's a simple set of questions, such as adding a location, adding a description, and other forms that are needed for the application before they would hit submit at the end. And then once the customer does hit submit, it is then accessible for staff to begin the review process. So that submit button marks the same point in time as if they were coming into the office to submit an application in person. So this slide represents the overall review process for single-family development, which begins with an application submitted online or in person for zoning review and permitting, shown in item number 1. And then it moves through the Building Inspection Services Department for plan review and building permits. The coordinated review also commences during this time to issue stormwater or encroachment permits as necessary. And then once construction begins, the process moves through the inspection phase where stormwater and building services perform their required inspections, depending on what type of application they are reviewing. And the final step is the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And customers are able to follow along in their citizen access portal to see what the status is of their project and kind of where they are in the process. For non-single-family residential permitting, that does undergo a more extensive process with additional review and coordination to ensure the safety of the public. The initial phase is called site plan review, which is a coordinated effort between the 3 departments where they review and comment on the site design. Other agencies such as SCDOT or DHEC may also be involved in this part of the process. And once the site design is finalized, then building services will review the plans and issue permits. And then when construction begins, departments, stormwater and building services will perform their inspections, and then a CO will be issued and business licenses can be obtained. So again, the customer is able to follow along through their portal to see where they are in the process. So to conclude, the zoning and planning, building services, and the public works stormwater departments are continually working together to not only improve our internal review processes, but also provide our customers with a seamless experience that is offered through a variety of formats. And we are happy to take any questions.
Any questions from council members?
Is there, I mean, I like this automated system, but of course it's not for everyone. But those that will use this, is there an opportunity for them to provide feedback, especially, you know, in the
Yes.
first year or two of using this process? Is there a way for them, are they asked to provide feedback?
Yes, definitely. So we have a customer survey that is directly linked on our citizen self-service portal, and we want all the feedback we can get. You know, this was built from the staff side, trying to see what kind of questions that customers may have of us. So all of the feedback is very much welcomed so that we can make it better.
Who will monitor that, and who will
It,
determine whether to act on that feedback?
Right, so that would be circulated through the 3 department representatives for the for InterGov. So it would be one of each of us in each department, and we would get together and discuss the items.
Okay.
Anybody else? Only question I would have, Mr. Armstrong, Walt, would y'all have enough staff to do this, or do y'all need more staffing, you know, to make this happen? Because a lot of times, people are backed up, can't get inspections because we overloaded. So just asking that question so we know how to budget the next year's budget. Would we have enough staff, or do we need more people since the construction and everything is going up? You know,
In the building services as well as planning and our budgets, I was just reviewing them today. We're gonna be asking for FTEs for both of those departments. So here's a.
because the numbers are going up and you don't have enough inspectors to go around. So this case is a wide county. So, all right, just wanted to make sure. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we now go to our library update.
Chairman, members of council, good evening. My name is Carl Wolfile. I'm from the Facilities Department. I'm the Design and Construction Manager. I'm going to give you an update on the progress of the library referendum and also lead into some discussion on the way forward with the main library. As you know, we've got 4 new libraries already out there on the street. Beautiful libraries. More importantly, they've improved services for all of our patrons with all the features and functions that came with them, namely automated book handling, adult, teen, children's, and outdoor spaces, small and large meeting rooms, and access to latest technology. All of those are very popular with most of the patrons. The best part about it is that after those 4 were completed, we were 14% underneath our forecasted budget, which allowed for $9 million of available funding to reallocate back into the referendum. The one that's still in progress, of course, is the North Charleston Keith Summey Library. With our decision to incorporate it into the Shipwatch Square, there were 3 advantages that came out of that. One is the frontage on the Rivers Avenue, the increased size of the location, and also preserving the Cooper River Memorial Library. This library is approximately 40% complete to date, with a scheduled occupancy in August. The contractor has successfully stayed on schedule despite challenges with dismantling the Cooper River Memorial Library and also preserving the shell. And then the construction industry has been hit with a lot of impacts on material delays and labor shortages. In addition to the new libraries, we're also renovating the old ones. The purpose was to update those libraries with the latest features and functions to match that level of service. We've already completed Cynthia Hurd, St. Andrews, Johns Island, and Otranto. Still in progress is Mount Pleasant and Dorchester Road renovations. As you can see by those pictures, The extent of those renovations is pretty significant, much more so than what was originally programmed. That's largely due to the fact that we were able to reprogram that money from the savings of the new libraries back into the regionals to their advantage. Mount Pleasant and Dorchester are 60% complete, and the contractor is actually ahead of schedule. He's due to be complete by June of 2022 of this year. The advantage of this was we did it in a phased approach, so these came after the first three. There were a lot of things discovered, as is typical in renovation projects, that they were able to lean forward on and prevent in these renovations, and we're hoping we'll be able to do the same thing when we go into the branch renovations. And then one large renovation was also the support services building. This allowed our admin staff from the CCPL to vacate the main library in preparation for the renovation of the main. Library staff have fully occupied, and it's been reported they're loving their new spaces. This is a snapshot overview of the funding and the schedule for the referendum. On the left-hand side, you can see the funding bar. The light gray bar is what was budgeted and what was forecasted for each of those separate projects. As you can see with Wando, Baxter Patrick, St. Paul, and Bees Ferry, each of those individual blocks were all a little bit smaller than what was forecasted and budgeted. And you can see there's an outlay of funds there. That allowed for us to invest a little bit more at North Charleston and also in the regionals, and that's why those blocks are a little bit larger than what was originally forecasted. On the right-hand side, the schedule, those bars for each project show 3 phases. The lightest color is the design phase. The middle portion is the procurement and contracting, and then the darker portion is the duration of the construction. Our current progress, or current time is indicated by the red line at the beginning of 2022. And as it shows, we're currently still in progress with the regional renovations construction, and also North Charleston Keith Summey construction, and currently in design in branch renovations. Leolio is a designer on that. They're at 35% complete. They originally came in with the original scope that we gave them, and it was significantly over budget, and so we've been working with CCPL staff to reduce that scope in order to get it back down underneath budget. We are, as it indicates there, we're also poised to begin design on the main renovation. In accordance with the 2016 programming, the renovation of Main consisted of 2 parts. One was the full renovation of the area vacated by the admin staff that came up as indicated in the tan area. The blue area, the rest of it, was supposed to be a very limited refresh of the rest of the library. It was a selective replacement of FF&E, some electrical and IT upgrades. The funds available in the referendum right now to date are sufficient for this very limited scope. However, there's concern that the level of renovation that this offers won't match the level of service in our other locations that we've provided out there. The good news is that there's a potential opportunity to do something more. And so at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Angela Craig, the Director of CCPL, to discuss this opportunity.
Thank you, Carl. Good evening, Council. Angela Craig, Charleston County Public Library. As Carl articulated, we have been very pleased with the renovation and with the new libraries, and we are grateful for every county dollar that we have for our libraries. It has been wonderfully successful, as I'm sure you know. In reviewing the original scope for Main Library from 2016, we looked at it with fresh eyes with our current approach to libraries. And what library staff concluded is that we are quite concerned that Main Library would be left behind. After knowing what we know with our brand new buildings and also our renovations, we want to make sure that our largest building of Main is able to keep pace with the new buildings and with our renovated spaces. We decided that we would like to focus on 5 areas that we could fundraise for and help elevate within Main Library as a complement to the referendum funding. We would like to focus on the South Carolina room, which is our archives. We would like to focus on a youth area space, which would allow for children, preteen, and teen services with emerging technology as well. We would like to have a robust business innovation center where we would be able to focus on workforce development training, be a business incubator, and partner with different community organizations to offer services that complement library services. We would like to have dedicated gallery spaces where we could showcase different parts of our collection, such as a upcoming Cynthia Graham Hurd collection that we're developing with the family, as well as doubling as meeting space and rentable space for venues. We would also like to build out the Friends of the Library program space. Our 501c3 has operated within Main Library for many years. They've been very successful. We would love to dedicate more space and more opportunity for them for donation intake, sorting, and a small storage space. This is culminated into what we're calling Project Main. This is a logo that we have in development. It would be a fundraising project centered on Main Library. All donations would be centralized with the Coastal Community Foundation, with the Charleston County as the recipient of all funding. The CCPL fundraising goals would mean that we would launch Project Main in the effort February 2022 to conclude in January 2023. The funding needed for packages as estimated by Charleston County Facilities is $12.3 million. The donations will be centralized with the Coastal Community Foundation. Project Main is coordinated by the CCPL Fundraising Committee with 5 library trustees and myself, the executive director. We have 2 of the trustees here with us. We have Mr. Rob Bico and we have Mr. Vic Rawl in support. The timeline for this would mean that we would bump the planning for the main renovation just a bit so that we could have time to fundraise for those areas that I articulated so that we can have a little more robust funding for Main Library. As you can see, even though we will be bumping the timeline for the Main Library planning, there is other planning and other projects going on with the regional renovations, the small branch renovations, and wrapping up the Keith Summey branch. What the library staff recommendation is to council is we would like the opportunity to incorporate additional funding with this fundraising project into the planning for Main Library so that we can help Main Library keep pace with the rest of the new spaces and the renovations. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Craig? Okay, thank you. So what do you need us to do?
We would like the support of council for us to move forward with our fundraising effort beginning next month. We are not asking for any additional funds from Maine. We would just simply like the support of council for the fundraising committee to move forward with our effort to raise money for Maine.
So you would need, you would ask for our authorization to allow y'all to do this? Or do
Yes.
y'all don't need it, or do y'all need our authorization?
Yes, we would love your support in moving forward in authorization for that.
Okay, does someone want to make a motion?
I have a question. Yeah, we need a motion.
He's got a question, and then,
Ms. Craig, I'm curious, I think you said you're trying to raise 12.3 million,
Yes, sir.
and I know we had a surplus going forward. So is the 12.3 million for additional items that weren't planned?
Yes, sir. The 12.4 million is what the estimated amount is for those 5 areas that we articulated.
Thank you.
any other question? Let's make a motion first, and then we can discuss this. That's the proper way to do it. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second, now we can go to discussion.
So Ms. Craig, this anticipates that there will be zero balance once everything else is done?
Correct, yes.
And is that, do we think that's accurate? How confident are we that we'll end up with zero balance?
May I turn that over to Walt to answer?
Right now, we have in the program for the main, about $9 million. Any money that we get from fundraising will supplement all those additional areas. So again, it will be a zero balance. We will design to what come in from fundraising and what we have on hand.
Right, but that doesn't necessarily answer my question. If we weren't doing this, if you were not here asking if you could raise funds, how confident are we that at the end, if we don't do these 5 things and we don't raise any funds, that we break even at zero? I mean, because what if we finish everything and we have $6 million, $8 million, then you could ask us if you could do some of these things with that money. So I'm just curious, I mean, because if it does come together that way, then what happens to that surplus?
Mr.
Right
Small.
now, there's no surplus. Right now, we estimate that we'll have the 9 million is for the initial programming to renovate 22,000 square foot of space. And we'll use that money to do that.
Right, but we didn't anticipate any surplus at all, and we've had some. All the new libraries, we finished those,
Yes.
and we ended up with surplus. We did not anticipate that.
And we added that to the Summit libraries and the regional, those surpluses. And again, we only have 9 million toward the construction that's left after we allocate those surplus to other projects. And that 9 million is to renovate 22,000 square feet of the main library.
And main library is actually 104,000 square feet, which is why we are concerned that the original scope and plan for that renovation is not going to match what people now expect from their public library. And unfortunately, we are now trying to renovate during COVID, where there have been substantial supply chain issues and other things that have impacted the budget. So as Walt articulated, we are confident in 9 million, but we don't think there'll be any other excess after the other projects.
And I assume y'all think your ability to raise 12.3 million is viable?
We do. Now is a good time for us to see how the public feels about CCPL. We are the highest rated library in South Carolina. We are 4 stars. We've had wonderful success with our workforce development, educational success, and equity initiatives. We have been meeting the needs of the community in ways I think have been surprising and impactful for them. The reason why we have those 5 areas is that we know that people would love to invest in the archives of the South Carolina room because people love history in Charleston. The youth area is always a sure bet because people love the youth, and we have a wonderful track record with our youth programs and with our youth spaces. The other 3 programs, we believe that there are donors that love the Friends, love a gallery idea, and also love business innovation and workforce development. We know that it is a large amount, and we also know that we might have to make some choices if we don't raise the full amount. And so we've talked to facilities about that. What would our priorities be? Where we want to put that fundraising, and how we want to have that articulated in the building if we don't reach our target.
I mean, we don't often get requests from groups to allow them to raise their own funds, so it'd be hard for me to vote no. So I'll support it, and I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I'd just like to make a comment that, when we started this funding for repairing the libraries, it was a great thing that we were repairing and replacing libraries. And it looks like we didn't put enough emphasis on our main library that we've done. And unfortunately, it put us in this predicament now that we are not able to upgrade the main library as well as we have done all of the other branches. And this is giving us an opportunity now to increase the library, put more of the services in the main library that we should have to make it equal or a little bit better, because it's our main library, than the other branches that we have. And not every library has a South Carolina room, the history room. So that's the main place to go to learn everything you want to learn about our history is in the main library. So I know I was present when we put together this plan to renovate, and we were thinking that when we renovate the libraries, we would just give the residuals to the main library. That's backwards. We should have thought of that first. I'll be the first to admit to that. So I do support us upgrading the library with the additional space, and to allow for all of the other new programs that we put in the branches as well.
Okay, so Ms. Honeycutt?
Yes, like Mr. Swears, I want to commend you all for coming to us with your own plan for funding. My question is slightly different than Mr. Swears. His related to what we may have in excess on existing projects. What happens if we don't have any excess on existing projects and you all don't raise that 12? I'm concerned and I support this, but I'm concerned that my support may be interpreted as we'll make up the shortfall. So what happens when you design to that amount, that 12 million, and don't collect it?
If I may, Carl might be able to answer how the timing will be.
So, go ahead, I'll give you first. I see you had your hand up. You want to say something? Go ahead.
We will not start that design process until after or close to the end of the funding. So we'll know how much we have to design to. Right now, again, 9 million we have. We can do the original programming with the 9 million.
I understand. And then I would like you to elaborate though on what your plan might be if you don't get it, like if you only get 4 million.
If I can back up, we have our priorities. Our priority number one would be the South Carolina room with the archives. There actually is not a real archive at Main Library. It's very close to a nice closet. We would like to build it out and have an actual archive space so that we can preserve items that are donated to us. And we are very committed to the Cynthia Graham Hurd family because they have items that they would like for us to keep to remember her. And we don't have an appropriate archive for that. So that would be space one. Space two would be the youth service area with children's, teen, and the technology that would be part of there. If we only had money to fund those 2 spaces, that would be fine because the other 3 spaces, there are also opportunities for grants and other ways to build out those spaces at a later time. If we only had to focus on the 2 areas of the South Carolina room and the youth area space, also that would be fine because we know that that would be probably where we get the most return on investment with the community because those are the best areas to articulate and they probably understand what historical preservation means as well as youth area space. If we get no money and we only have the $9 million, then we will proceed and plan with that. But I'm of the mindset that you get $0 if you don't fundraise. So I would very much enjoy the chance to see what we can get. And my goal is 12.4 million. And if we don't get that, then we will make choices on where we want to spend the money as I outlined here.
I appreciate that you've scaled it that way and looked at all the options. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so the motion, you want to say something? Yes, you want to? All right, so the motion on the floor is to allow the library to raise their funds to complete what they want done. Is that what you got down, Ms. Salisbury?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's been duly seconded, moved and seconded, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Good luck to you. All right, item number 4, COVID-19 response. We have an update from the county.
Click through here, or you could click through here. Either way, it wasn't working. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Lori Kidwell. Joe Coates was unable to make it tonight. He had a prior engagement. Charleston County has a high incident rate of 2,921 citizens that have been affected with COVID and a 29% testing positivity rate. On January 13th, there were 86,847 total cumulative positive cases within Charleston County. There are 55 Charleston County employees that have tested positive so far in the month of January. And our vaccination rate within the county has been 69.9% of the population who is fully vaccinated. Charleston County has experienced 771 total cumulative deaths since March of 2020. And the Charleston County School District has 4,419 positive cases. The current hospital data As you can see here, there is 252 beds that are available currently in acute hospital beds. In ICU, there's 37% that are available, and in ventilators, there's 18% that are available. Charleston County has a cumulative total of 6,374 positive cases as of the week of December 29th to January 4th. That's an average of 910 new cases a day. The week of January 5th to January 11th, that average rate was 1,136 new cases a day, making it 7,958 positive cases. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for the young lady? Okay. All right, thank you for the update. We move to item 4B, which is the distribution of testing kit. At our meeting downtown on the 4th, I believe it was. Yes, sir. I had asked staff to look into seeing how we could get some of these testing kits to get out to the public, because the hospitals are being overwhelmed, the doctor's offices are being overwhelmed, the testing sites are being overwhelmed, and now it goes from a 24 to 48 hours window of receiving results to now 76 hours or even longer. And so the number she said, the people that tested positive, that's the people who tested who we know of, but the people that got in line didn't want to wait, couldn't get testing kits available because all your CVS's and your Walmarts and your Walgreens are out. And so that's why I brought this and wanted to discuss with council of obtaining some kits and giving it out to the public citizens of Charleston County so they can do at-home testing. And that way they won't have to go to work whether they're positive. And if they're negative, they can go to work. But what I see is happening, and reading in the paper and the doctors and everybody saying, don't come to the emergency room for a COVID test. Don't come to the doctor's office if you're not sick for a COVID test. And so this will at least give them some type of guidance and keep them from being out around people, because they just don't want to wait 3 or 4 hours in the line to get a test. So that's where we at. It's open for discussion, and that's why I'm here to ask council support. Let's us buy some of these testing kits and get it out into the community, especially the rural areas where these folks don't have the ability to get to maybe like a CVS or a Walgreens. And so with that, I'm open for discussion. Ms. Honeycutt?
So I have a few questions. I can find this in time. Is it okay to ask her a couple questions about the numbers?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am. Would you mind just coming in? Well, I need you to, could you pull the charts back up that you had? I just want to make sure that we're getting the same hub data, because the report we had on, it was from January 2nd through the 8th. Is that what you're presenting as well, the same data?
Let me pull it back up.
Said December 29th to the 4th of January or something like that.
You're talking about these numbers?
The ones that were in the
six-
pie charts. I think the one before, yeah. What is the date range for those?
They would have been from last week.
Okay, because like the chart that we got, there were much more stuff available than is showing up in those charts. For instance, is this, this must be just Charleston County. What we get is Tri-County, I guess.
Yes, ma'am, this
okay.
is just Charleston.
Okay, all right, that was my first question. So thank you for coming back up to explain that.
Yes.
But I did have one more about the testing that we're talking about. Are we talking about PCR tests? Are we talking about just these type of rapid tests you get at the drugstore?
Yeah, antigen tests, right.
Okay, and what is, how do we contemplate giving those out? Is it the sort of thing we did like with Feder, where they came in and did testing, or do we?
You could give them out at your libraries. I'm sure the libraries would be glad to give them out. You can give it out to local churches, the Community Resource Center, when they do a food drive, they can give out to the public. You can, put it out in the churches in the rural area. So we would obtain these, and we would ask these people to give it out to the public. I wouldn't want somebody to drive all the way from Auburndale or Edisto to come down to obtain a kit. If we can put it out there with Eric and his team to some of the churches out there in the outreach.
Do we have a number
Kids,
a price, a value for this?
well, what I was looking at, the county is 400,000 plus people, but I was looking at 200,000, but then I would settle on, right now, just to see how it goes, 100,000. You know, we looking at around about $900,000 in funds, which will come out of the money that we receive from the federal government, which is the purpose of the money is to do things like this in the communities.
And who supplies these test kits?
Well,
Where do we get them?
Our staff would get, you know, with the 3 estimates, I think. Bill, you want to explain what's going on?
There, you wanna, since it's.
Ms. Johnson, I see you and Mr. Sass. I'll get to both of y'all in just a minute. I want to answer Ms. Honeycutt first.
Ms. Honeycutt, members of council, what we did is we contacted 4 firms and got prices on test kits that could be used at the homes. The prices range from as low as $7.40 up to $15. We did find a firm that could provide us test kits at a cost of $7.40 that could deliver the test kits within about 7 to 14 days. And we believe when we did our research on it, that would be our best available test kits to get for Charleston County. We looked at all the possibilities, and also the test kits are FDA approved. That was the other thing that we looked at when we did the research.
Is that this test kit right here?
No, sir.
So what is this?
That was a sample that was received from a firm here locally.
Ms. Honeycutt, any more questions?
Are we being asked tonight to vote on that procurement?
Yes.
900,000
Yes.
for 100,000 test kits?
Yes.
That's $9 a piece.
The amount is up to 900,000, yes, ma'am. The procurement can figure out how to spend that 900,000.
Is there a staff recommendation on this, Mr. Tootin?
No, ma'am.
That's all.
Okay, Mr. Johnson and then Mr. Sass.
Well, I was just gonna ask him about the, you said it's 7 to 14 days delivery time from when we order the kits?
That would be correct.
Okay, because I understand, I mean, it seems like the numbers are escalating so much every day, and I was just wondering how fast we can get it. So is this local, or are we talking about?
This is a local firm that we work with. And just looking at it across the country, it is in hot demand. But when we looked at all the firms that we talked to, this is the quickest turnaround that we could get. We're trying to work to see if we can get it even faster, but 7 to 14 days, especially since there is a process to get these manufactured and get out to folks. So 7 to 14 days seem to be the quickest that we could get.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Sass?
Thank you, sir. You say it's a local firm. Are these are FDA approved? I believe.
Yes.
Did you say they were FDA approved?
Yes, sir. There are some test kits out there that we can purchase. However, what we looked at, some of the test kits, you need a medical professional to administer it to you. So therefore, we did not look at purchasing those because you'd still be at the same point.
Well, no, I agree. People wouldn't have the ability to have a medical professional. Most people wouldn't have somebody that could administer that test. So it has to be one that the people can do themselves or with somebody in their family. And these would be available to all citizens of Charleston County? They'd be distributed somehow?
Yes, sir. First come, first served, yes, sir. And I'm gonna let Mr. Watson, talk about how this would be distributed, because when I asked him to look into this, he had some good ideas, so, if you want him to answer your question now, I'll ask him to come out.
And
Mr. Chairman, just to piggyback off what you said, pretty much our concept will be just similar to as we did at the height of this pandemic. partner with Feder, partner with the churches, our local towns, city administrators, mayors, for example, Hollywood, Ediso, Adams Run, McCullenville, Arno area, even Arno Fire Department, especially the library, played an important role in helping us dispense out these kind of test kits. So that's our plan. So our hopes is that we can manage it. That's our only concern, make sure we can manage it.
Okay, Mr. Sass? You done? All right, Mr. Werman?
As far as our distribution goes, do we have some way of stopping folks from, sort of hoarding it? I think we talked about 2 a person. I mean, I don't want people necessarily just getting in the back of the line and coming through again, that sort of thing. I mean, I don't know how you can record that. I don't know if that brings up HIPAA issues. I just don't know how that gets administered. So that's one question.
That we discussed amongst staff. That's something we will just have to monitor.
Okay.
All right, you done?
I've actually got another question, which sort of relates to the 7 to 14 days issue. Say, one of my concerns is we buy this and it's 14 days and we're past the surge here and then we're kind of sitting with them. I mean, how long do these things keep? Do we have any?
Shelf life of 12 months.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Mr. Swears.
Mr. Chairman, this kind of reminds me of the saying, stay in your lane, bro. I think we're getting out of our lane here. We're not a hospital. We're not even medical providers, yet we're going to try to provide this service. So that concerns me greatly. We really don't have a set way to distribute these even. And the time lag is going to be at least 7 days. That tells me it's going to be at least 14 to 21 days. This virus is rampant right now. And I think in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, for better or for worse, it passes somehow. And this peak drops off dramatically. That's what's predicted, I think, even by the CDC. Reputable organizations are predicting, just like it peaked really quickly, it's also going to drop really quickly. So I think we're going to spend a lot of money to act on something, and we're going to miss it by 2 weeks. So, and again, it's just not our area. Also, the symptoms are you start feeling flu-like, okay? So let's say you don't get a test. Does that mean you're going to go to work feeling flu-like? I mean, if you had the flu, do you go to work? So to me, the actions, whether you had the virus or not, should be the same. If you feel flu-like, you don't go to work.
Some people do.
So, they shouldn't with the flu.
Yeah.
Okay?
They do.
So whether it's coronavirus or the flu, and really the Omicron, the symptoms for Omicron really aren't much worse than the flu at this point, probably maybe even a little bit less, but I'm no doctor, so I'm not going to weigh in too much on that. But I feel like if you have those symptoms, you should take action regardless of whether if you test negative, but you feel like you had the flu, you still shouldn't go to work. So I don't really know what we gain at this point by doing this. The testing was very important when we had the Delta variant sweeping, and it was a lot more, the repercussions of that were a lot more deadly. I'm not saying that any lives are worth losing, absolutely not. But I don't think this will amount to moving the needle. I just think it's not our area. I think we'll be too late. And I just think it's going to be a waste of taxpayer money. We don't, who on staff, who have we consulted with? Who are the medical professionals that we have consulted with? If anything, we should be helping the hospitals and the pharmacies get more test kits. If they are short on them, now we're going to compete with them? We're going to remove some from the stockpile? I mean, that doesn't seem to work either. And if for some reason they are not desperately trying to get these kits, why not? Why can we get them and they can't? So again, I just think we're going into an area that we're not ideal for. The administration of it, again, I don't think we have a plan. Lastly, if we use the federal money, you said $900,000 and that would be federal funds?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. what strings, there are always strings attached to federal money. Can somebody, Mr. Tootin, Soren, somebody, what strings will be attached to that?
That's the truth.
We can use the lost revenues from the ARPA funds that we received. It is an eligible cost out of that money. So the strings attached would be that we have to follow the federal rules for spending the money. The lost revenue side, council has a lot of flexibility on. So we've already received half of the money, and we should receive the second half sometime in March or April.
Okay, but they are available immediately.
Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Okay. Again, I'm just not seeing where we're gaining anything. It's a feel-good measure. It looks like we're doing something. I think we'll do it very clumsily, and I don't think we'll accomplish anything.
I'll wait till you finish. Go ahead, Reverend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do repeat, what I said last week, because we were at a $3 million price tag last week, and it's pared down now to $900,000. I'm still very concerned with the amount and the plan or lack thereof. Certainly, I do know as a grassroots person myself and somebody who's able to mobilize things, it does require boots on the ground and some sort of strategic tactical plan to get such things out. And even if we get it in 2 weeks, looking at, just the very roller coaster nature of, just the crest and or the flattening of this virus, we're coming off of a New Year's surge or Christmas New Year's surge. So as is predicted, come the next couple of weeks, things will be, cool down a little bit again. And then we're going to have 900,000, or 100,000 test kits, that no one's going to use and is going to be sitting somewhere or not really productively utilized. So, $900,000, $3 million. Certainly, if we're looking to spend money fast, there are other ways we could spend money.
Have we done any analysis of the testing need, the actual people that need these? I mean, do we have any concept of whether, would 20,000 tests be better than no tests versus 100,000 where we have, 50,000 sitting around after this thing starts to drop? I mean, do we have any concept at all of the numbers of people being tested or any data?
When you ask the question, or you say they're gonna be sitting around, what do you mean sitting around? When you make them available to the public, and folks come pick them up, we're not looking to stockpile on the shelf, at least I know I'm not.
Well, no, I'm just saying if they don't get used, regardless of who's in possession of them.
Right.
My question is, do we have any data that supports the number? In other words, would 25,000 suffice?
The way I see it, and the reason I brought this up, your doctors at the hospitals, your emergency rooms, and your primary physician, your testing sites are asking for help because they're being overran. And so, this is what the COVID money was meant for. It was not meant to sit in the bank and draw interest and then, we have folks in need. We spend money on whatever we want to, whatever man heart is, that's where his treasure lies. And so, when Mr. Swayze says taxpayers' money, this is the money that came from the federal government. Yes, and it's all taxpayers' money,
Correct,
yes.
you're correct.
But we use taxpayers' money for other things too that's inadequate, but we don't have a thing. We use taxpayers' money for green belts, and a lot of people don't support green belts. We use taxpayers' money for 526. A lot of people don't support 526. So when you make that analysis, I think, it's unfair to do that. Now, if we want to help people, get through this crisis, that is the responsibility of government. But, if you don't, and 5 people said, no, they don't want to do it, that's up to them. But at least I brought it here, my heart is clear, but we need to do something in the time of a pandemic. They waited too late the last time, that's why we're in right now. If Washington had to do what they were supposed to, these things would have been readily available. They waited until it ramped up, knowing that it was coming, and that's why you got this surge. So, I'm not going to try to persuade nobody, you vote your conscience and do what you want to do. I'm just saying, I think that there's a need, and we need to look at the need to help the folks that are in need. And this ain't gonna help poor folks or rich, this help everybody trying to get tested. You know, we have people at work that can't come back because they can't get tested. They gotta wait for an appointment to get tested.
We
So
won't take an at-home test, I don't think, to return to work, will we?
we don't need one to return to work here. I'm not talking about here, I'm talking about the general public. It would be nice to know if somebody's in your house having symptoms, they can pick up the kit and take a test and say, yeah, you positive. Versus waiting, 2 or 3 days, or waiting 6 hours in the line to get tested, and then you gotta wait another 3 days for your results to come back. That's what I'm looking at, but I brought it to the council, the majority rules, so whatever the majority wants, that's fine. Mr. Middleton, Reverend Middleton?
Yeah, I'm tested regularly because that's just the way I work. We sponsored from my church vaccination and testing clinics. We took it to various housing projects on the peninsula. We took it to the communities of the individuals that probably would have the most difficulty getting to it. And even when we took the testing clinic and vaccination clinic to the communities, we had to, pry them out of their homes in order to, and I'm not saying that, just to be funny, but I'm saying, making something readily available does not necessarily also presuppose people are going to take advantage of it. Literally. We had to give incentives and other things in order for individuals to even be, so there has to be education, it used to be you had to go all the way up to your brain, and now you can just get, so there has to be more than just getting the kits, even if when we were trying to sign individuals up for the housing assistance, and we then said we were going to use the library staff, and or when it was time to get individuals during the vaccination clinics, we were going to send out, the library staff persons and our community development people to go out door to door and beckon them to come. Well, what kind of stress did that put on them, and how effective was that actually? I mean, it's not a plan if we don't have a strategic, sort of game plan as to how these things are going to roll out.
Mr. Swears?
To build on that, Mr. Middleton, we did a major drive, some of the churches in the McClellanville area did a major drive, rural area, to get vaccinated. And quite a few people were involved, including MUSC. A lot of the local leadership was involved, and Carter McMillan asked him to attend, and he did. I think it was on a Saturday. He attended, and I said, Carter, but one thing I ask of you, I know you'll be helpful, you always are. I said, but I want to know how many people actually got vaccinated. And when he came back the next week and I saw him, I said, well, Carter, what was the number? He said, a few. We had probably 6 to 8 professionals out there to get a few people vaccinated. Maybe that saved a life, maybe. But you have to approach this with some practicality. I just don't think we, county council, we're not built for this. This is, again, we're out of our lane here.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, sir. I recall hearing the president is ordering a lot of test kits. I can't remember the big number that it was.
$500,000.
But this was just last night. And so, what I see that we would be gaining from providing the test kits is to help those people who may have the COVID and they go to work. Because if they're not able to test themselves and they go to work, then they spread it with everybody else in the building. And the same thing is going on in the schools. That's why a lot of schools right now are going on virtual, in case y'all haven't seen that. A lot of schools are going virtual. And the sad thing is, we're not doctors, but when you need something right then, and it's scarce, it's not to be found on the shelf somewhere, then you say in hindsight, I wish I coulda, shoulda, donna, or whatever. We don't want, this is not the time for me to be thinking that,
Don't cure anything.
should we do that? Should we not do that? because it is a scarcity thing, and it is something that's going to impact our service, our employment, and our schools if we don't have no control over it. I'd rather have the test available if I need it than to need it and can't find it nowhere. And the money is here for us to be able to make the purchase. Hopefully, we could find the tests from wherever they're planning to get it from before somebody else does, because that's the next thing. When you get ready to order, you might not be able to get it nowhere.
Ladies, I'm sorry, you finished?
Thank you, I'm finished.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the same thing Ms. Johnson did in the sense that the Biden administration 2 hours ago announced that they're getting $500 million more, and they're distributing through the Postal Service with 7,000 extra workers, and it will require folks getting online to order it to get it at home, but they're free. The Biden administration apparently also mandated that insurers pay for or compensate people for the cost of a certain number of tests. So they're available to certain individuals for sure. My concern though is that this 100,000 tests is a lot. I mean, it's a lot of tests even to manage, just to distribute. Like Reverend Middleton was saying, I could support doing 25,000 and still seems like a whole lot of boxes of tests to get out to the community. But I'm just not sure that the data supports, one, the need of 100,000, and number two, that we can get them out in time to really make a difference, to Mr. Schweer's point. But I'll listen to everybody else.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Wellman, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion. Is there a motion on the floor?
No.
Mr.
I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Johnson?
I'd like to make a motion, yes.
Who said they'd like to make a motion?
Mr. Berman?
No, that was going to be my question, actually, and I guess the answer is
All
no.
right, so the motion on the, who wants to make a motion? Ms. Johnson?
I think I said it first.
Okay, Mr. Swear, you first. Go right ahead.
I move that we not purchase the test kits. I just don't think there's any practical solution offered here.
Is there a
with us
second to his
buying
motion?
test kits.
Second.
Second by Reverend Middleton. Any more discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Pryor, you would not at least care to compromise, sir?
He has a motion on the floor. He's already made his motion.
Well, I'm asking you, sir.
He's not gonna compromise. He
We're
said
not
you don't
voting
need
yet, sir, so I'm at, Mr. Swears, can we have a compromise? Say, for instance, like Ms. Honeycutt said, let's do 25,000 as opposed to 100,000?
Amendments are always, if the chair allows, amendments are always allowed.
Somebody makes a motion and you accept it. That's
I'd
up to
like
them.
to add as an addendum if possible, sir, that we compromise for 25,000 as opposed to 100,000, sir.
That comes to 140,000, I think.
That
20.
what?
I did the quick math. 20,000 tests at $7 was around 140,000. So we're looking at 150 to what, 200.
$2.40.
We can set a budgetary number even.
Explain, sir.
And, I mean, because the test kits might be considerably higher than that. We could set a budgetary number, or we could set our number of test kits.
What would that number be, sir?
No higher than 150,000. That buys us the, how many did you say, 25, or over 25,000? Or over,
What was the 25,000, Ms.
sorry.
Honeycutt?
I'm doing my math wrong.
Well, why would you even?
Motion stand. Listen,
No,
Mr. Darby, just to your point, if you're gonna piecemeal something
It's not.
and not do it the right way, I'd rather not do it at all.
Mr. Pryor,
I don't
sorry.
accept your amendment then.
Wow.
Mr. Salisbury, call the roll.
Mr. Darby?
Abstain.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. is absent. Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schweer? Mr. Werman?
Nay.
Mr. Pryor?
No.
The motion passes 4-3.
Okay. We move on to our next, which will be redistricting map option. Is there a motion for?
I move for option 1, and I would like to discuss if I get a second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any other? Well, we can take them one at a time, vote them up or vote them down. He's got number 1 on the floor. So if you want to discuss number 1, go right ahead, sir.
All right, actually, option number one basically maintains my current district. For the record, I am not running for reelection, so this has nothing to do with my campaigning for reelection. But option one preserves the fact that right now, my district includes the South of Broad area downtown, which when I first started campaigning, I thought that was a little odd. But the longer I served, the more I realized how well South of Broad actually does fit into my district, which includes Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, the Old Village area in Mount Pleasant, everything coastal all the way to the Santee River. I started to realize that actually makes a lot of sense. Then I learned of something in redistricting called communities of interest. And I thought, okay, that's kind of why it makes sense. Those folks, they live along the coast, the immediate coast, and they have common interest in the rising tides, flooding issues, very high property tax on their homes, so it was always easy for me to relate to everyone in my district because we shared common challenges. My district also doesn't need to be changed because of population shifts. It doesn't need to be changed, and there are several goals of redistricting. One of which is try to leave the district alone if you can. Well, my district doesn't need to be changed, okay? Communities of interest is another one. Keeping the district intact is another. And also public support. So I thought, I'm trying to look out for the interests of everyone in my district. And I thought, South of Broad, I want to make sure I'm really looking out for their interests, okay, with that district. So I thought, well, I'm going to reach out to the leadership that is in that district immediately, actually lives there. So I reached out to two main people. Mike Seekings, probably all of y'all know Mike Seekings. He's a city councilman, and he's also the chairman of CARTA. A lot of you probably know him through that. I asked him, I said, Mike, I can argue for something, but I only want to argue for that if I think that's what the neighborhood wants. I said there's an opportunity for South of Broad not to be in District 2 anymore and tied in with Mount Pleasant, Sullivan's Island, et cetera, and instead to be tied in with James Island, Kiowa, and Seabrook. And I said, which one do you think your voters, specifically in the South of Broad area, which also goes somewhat north of Broad in some areas, I said, which voters do you think they would find more in common with? Which ones would they like to stick with? And he said, Dickie, I really think District 2. I think you wouldn't want to change anything. It works right now. I said, okay, well, that's a good opinion from him. But they also have what's called the Charlestown Neighborhood Association, which is a neighborhood group that represents the entire South of Broad area. So I reached out to their leader. They actually have a new president now, Higdon, who used to be with the College of Charleston. I ran the same thing by him. I said, look, I'm not running for re-election, so this is not about me, but it's about which group do you think you relate better to? And he agreed also. He said, I would think we would want to stay in District 2. In other words, status quo. So I said, well, that is an option. I might lose that vote, but I will at least present that to County Council. So I feel like if South of Broad had a vote, at least their leadership is saying right now that they prefer status quo. District 2, there's no reason to change it. The population numbers just haven't shifted. Also, where that area would be shifted to, which is Ms. Honeycutt's district, there's actually no need to shift her numbers either. She and I both, even with the population increases, our populations increase about the number it needed to pretty much stay whole. Not perfectly, but pretty close to it. So that's why I am proposing option 1.
Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir. Okay, I see Mr. Merriman had his hand up, and I come to Ms. Honeycutt.
Well, I cannot support option 1. I mean, because, as much as, population and different districts may need to change less or more, I mean, I think option 1 is a radical change to District 3. I am already, it's not me, it is the district. The district is already undergoing, and for a district which, by the way, has a history of changing somewhat radically in the past, from what was, initially a North Charleston district. Now, obviously, we have some Mount Pleasant, some downtown, is already shrinking in North Charleston. And to take Charleston Farms out to facilitate this situation, downtown, I think is a very radical change, separates folks who equally have common interests of the creeks, of the roads in that area, of development and business opportunities. So my district is undergoing change. I'm willing to accept that to some degree, but I cannot support a change that separates Charleston Farms from the rest of the Park Circle area.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Yes. This is the concern I have. My district is actually moving regardless of which option there is. And I disagree. I think that James Island, Kiowa, Folly Beach, and Seabrook do have a lot in interest with the peninsula. I, too, represent the southern coastal areas of Charleston County. But the main problem for me with option one is that it really divides Ms. Johnson and I. And it takes me into a portion of the heart of Johns Island, down Maybank Highway, that divides neighbors. And we have seen how that impacts neighbors and neighborhoods in the past, where, I represent a group of people that travel through an intersection all day long, except Ms. Johnson, because of the boundary, represents the intersection specifically. And that makes it extremely challenging to feel like we're being fair to everyone. And so I feel like dividing Johns Island the way that the alternative, that is alternative one in this instance, contemplates, is very detrimental to those constituents. And so for that reason, I too cannot support option one.
Okay. Ms. Johnson?
Well, I cannot support option one, and basically for some of the same reasons that Ms. Honeycutt already said. I don't like the way the islands would be divided, and I think it would be better in another option than option one.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, Mr. Sass?
I support option 2 or option 3, but I'm not in favor of option 1.
Okay,
So point of order, there are three options. How do we do this? Perhaps,
you just made a motion.
not sure, but I'm not sure my motion, if my motion is defeated, then what is the
Then
next
your
step?
motion
is
defeated,
my
then we
question.
move, somebody else makes a motion to another map. So if you lose, that's it, you made your
Okay,
motion.
it's a matter of procedure. Madam Attorney, can I change my motion to that we each vote for one of the three options? I think that's a more fair way to do it. And then take the top two vote getters and then vote again?
If you want to change your motion, you made the motion, you may change it, but you would need to gain the second that supported your first motion
As well as the majority.
as well to make
I
that
just don't,
change.
I just wonder, okay, let's say this motion fails, then what?
Then another council member can make a motion if the council so chooses.
For another option?
For another
And
option,
then they'd have to get 5 votes? okay?
correct.
It just seems we might end up with nobody, none of them getting 5 votes is my point.
Okay,
So
well,
why not
it
vote
doesn't have
them?
to be 5, just a majority. Okay, so you got 8 people there, so it just have to be the majority, it doesn't have to be 5.
Okay, well, it'll have to be 5 if there are 8 of us here.
Somebody could abstain.
Okay, somebody abstains.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor. Ms. Salisbury, call the roll. For option number 1.
Mr. Darby?
Nay.
Mrs. Honeycutt? Nay. Ms. Johnson? Nay. Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody's absent. Mr. Sass? Nay. Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
No. To me?
Mr. Pryor?
No.
Okay. The motion fails.
All right, Ms. Johnson, you had a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion for us to adopt option number 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Ms. Salisbury, call the roll.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt? Aye. Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Middleton?
Nay.
Mr. Moody is absent, sorry. Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Nay.
Mr. Werman? Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Ms. Johnson, would you amend your motion to amend up the third reading?
Yes. I'd like to
If somebody wants, if
be able
council
to
wants to
amend up
look
the
at it and
third.
change some things. And who seconded it?
Mr. Darby, I think.
Mr. Darby, would you allow that to amend up the third reading?
Compromise, I may not allow it.
That's fine.
Yes, sir, I allow it, sir.
All right, so that's where we move on, so. That's the, that was recommended, that will be put up on our website, I would imagine, that we recommended item, this council recommended 3. So this will move to county council for first reading. So we have item 6, which is the recommendation of the administrative evaluation form. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, I'll wait, sir.
Discussion.
No, sir, it's another matter.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Mr. Darby, you have something before we move
In
to?
terms of my abstention the very first time, and there are 8 of us and it's 4-4, what happens to it? More discussion to come?
Well, the motion dies and I can send it to another council meeting. I mean, not another, county council meeting in this, but, you know,
And the reason I ask, because I'm not really satisfied. I do think there are some people who will need, I do think, and it may not be 100,000, but it may be 20 or 25,000. And I just don't want to kill it all together because there are some who may need. So as a result, if my vote, that I may change to vote against it, I think it's a draw and we have to bring it back up again. Am I right, sir?
yeah, Ms. Salisbury,
Yes, sir. If you change your vote, the vote ties, and then the chairman, at his discretion, could send it to full council with no recommendation.
Well, yes, because there are some population that may need. And I'd rather them be
Point
able
of
to have
order,
to.
actually, since we voted on it and we affirmed no, I still think it goes to council with a recommendation of no, correct? As opposed to, the motion didn't fail. If the motion had failed, then it dies in committee.
Right.
If the motion
he changed his vote.
passed, then it goes to full council with a no vote.
So that may be correct. However, I do want to point out that the rules do allow for a vote to be changed prior to the conclusion of the meeting.
Right.
So that just,
I guess what I'm saying is it's really irrelevant. It goes to full council
Right.
either way.
Yeah, go to full council at our next full council meeting. Not,
So I just need to know if it's going with no recommendation or if it's going with a
well,
recommendation.
it's going with none because
not
it's
to.
tied.
Okay, so Mr. Darby is changing his vote. Okay.
So that will come up not
Okay.
tonight, but that will come up on,
And just let me say for the record, Mr. Swears and Rev. Middleton, I do think there are some people, and just to kill it, I can't go along with, sir. So, again, that's my rationale for doing so. And then when Mr.
Next
Moody
council
comes back,
meeting,
whatever the
because
majority
time
says,
will be-
that's it. So that's the
next
rationale.
meeting is Tuesday, the 18th.
Tuesday coming, the
Yes, sir.
18th.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Darby, I appreciate your candor. That may be a little too late at the time, but I'm going to respect your vote, and then we send it to the council meeting on Tuesday. Because time is the essence, you know, the longer you wait to order these things, the more difficult it's going to be to obtain them. So I don't know, even if you decide to do something, how good that's going to be. And Mr. Middleton and Reverend Middleton and Mr. Swayze seem to think that the pandemic is going to die down, and you would need the test kits. And they could be right, they could be wrong, but what I don't want to do is, you know, give false hope to people, and then the pandemic is down by then. And certainly, it won't be a need to distribute them because people will say the pandemic is dying down.
Mr. Chair, I never said the pandemic will die down. I think we're almost in the realm of epidemic. And
Yeah,
at some point.
I checked, I mean, the surge.
Yeah.
You said the surge.
Right.
Would be done. I
And
didn't, yeah,
so
let me correct that.
With the
So-
pandemic becoming something that we're going to have to live with for a long time, I think there are other.
And let me tell you why I'm so passionate about this, about that subject. When you got kids that are under 5 years old that can't get vaccinated, that are being forced to go back to school, or kindergarten, because their parents gotta work, or some of them just go, they gotta go because that's where they need to be at around other kids. To me, I think that's unfair and inhumane. It ought to be some way to either have these kids stay home until they can get vaccinated and lessen the spread. You got a 2 or 3 year old that contract this Omicron, it affects them in different ways. Look at the hospital where all the young kids are at right now. The numbers are up in the 80s and they're almost full because why? There's no cure for that. So you have a 12-year-old that comes home that's vaccinated, that's around a 5-year-old or less, they bring something home. That's my point. If they could be tested and catch it. I'll give you a perfect example. A person on the job had to wait a week just to get a test to allow their child to go back to a private kindergarten because that's how far back the pediatrician was backed up with these tests. So when we think about things, it's not about adults. It's about the children as well. And so when we I wouldn't say harden our heart, but when we, look at it as just being for adults, what about the children? Okay, and I know, some people, Reverend Middleton, can care less. They don't want it. They don't believe in it. And I'm of a different mindset. Okay, it's taxpayers' money. Just like Mr. Swayze says, it's taxpayers' money. The people paid the taxes, so we should look out to serve these people. But now, the same people who got this passion on this, I hope you'll have it when it comes to 526, when it comes to how we going to issue out these money, when it comes to other things that's there and there. I hope they have the same passion when it says, well, we don't need to waste the money. Because I guarantee you, Teddy Pryor is going to be doing the same thing too. So, we want what we want and we support what we want, but when we don't want something, we find a way to kill it. I many excuses, asking many questions. So, like I said, I've been around, I've seen a lot, and that's what people do when they don't want something to pass. They put doubt in other people's mind. And when you put doubt in, doubt comes in, and you know what doubt is, your real revenue. It's fear and scare in some people's heart. So if we didn't want to move forward tonight, I even think Tuesday may be too late. That's just my opinion. So when we think about these things, think about the children. I have 3 grands that are under the age of 5. My biggest fear is protecting them. I have the booster, and I have all of us, mainly I guess, who wanted to be boosted. We have it. So Omicron may be nothing to us, but what about the children? On a ventilator, line up there trying to breathe. Because we as adults see things a different way based on some type of ideology sometime, or I just don't think the money should be spent that way. That's what the COVID money is for. My colleagues, that's what the COVID money is for. It's not to sit in the bank and draw interest. It's to help
Mr.
those.
Pryor, have we reopened this for
Hold on, I'm
discussion?
not finished, sir. I gave you all the time you needed to speak, sir. Hold on, I'm not finished.
Actually, we're not on that agenda item.
It doesn't matter. Mr. Darby changed his vote, and so I'm just clarifying why I did what I did. Okay? So, Mr. Swayze, I know the rules just as well as you do.
So you get to talk and I don't.
No, well, you had your chance to talk, Mr. Swayze. If you want to talk after I finish, you can do that. But please don't try to overcut me. I respected you, and I gave you all the time you needed without even interrupting you. So, I'm done. So we move to our county council meeting, where we have one item on the agenda, which is the county council redistricting. Ms. Salisbury, the Freedom of Information Act, please.
In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of meeting was posted and agendas were distributed to news media and persons requesting notification.
Item number 2 is county council redistricting maps. What is the pleasure?
Move for committee recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Got 2 nays, Mr. Swayze and Reverend Middleton. Okay. That concludes our county
I
council.
have to read it.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
An ordinance to provide for the adoption of a 9 single-member district redistricting plan for Charleston County Council, such plan providing for a council member to be elected from each district.
Okay, anything else? I'm gonna go to council members. Mr. Darby.
Mr. Tootin, some time ago, I had asked you to make some comparable notes in terms of the various entities, in terms of police dollars and whatnot, sir. But that was for the upper echelon. So what I'm asking for, sir, the salaries, $80,000 and less compared to the other, perhaps 3 or 4 largest counties, sir. If you did it for
I'll
me.
get that for you, sir, but the information I provided you did have the starting salaries of
deputies and the surrounding areas and the local municipalities.
Those were the lowest of the total polls, sir?
Those were the starting salaries, yes, sir.
80,000 and less.
It was from top to bottom. I'm a little confused as to exactly what you're asking for, sir.
If a first-year police officer, what he or she makes, as opposed to a first-year police officer who works for the county, say for instance, city of North Charleston, first year, BA degree, whatever the case may be, how much he or she will make compared to that of county, to the sheriff office for 1 year, no experience, sir. That's what I'm asking.
Okay, sir. I thought I'd provided that to you. Maybe I didn't. We'll
No,
get it.
not that you didn't, because I was thinking it was the upper echelon in terms of I think you had captain, deputy, whatever the case may be. But I'm talking from the very 80 to the below, so that's all.
Yes, sir. We'll get
All
it to
right.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Honeycutt? Ms. Johnson? Mr. Sass? Mr. Werman? Mr. Swears? Reverend Middleton? Ms. Ham? Anything for us? Mr. Tootin? Nothing for me. Meeting adjourned.